It's Friday morning. Got it right this time. I didn't say Friday afternoon. Friday morning. And you are listening to the Markcast.
Yeah, I noticed we said that we still kept calling it the XFL Markcast. So yes, we're gonna nail the intro. I was gonna say, hello, Paul, my old friend. It's good to podcast with you again. The title of our episode, Sounds of Silence. I felt like that was an apt for both XFL stuff and CFL stuff. I thought there's been a lot of silence and things have been running amok because of that. So I thought you like my title.
I do like your title a lot. So let's stop the silence, guys. Let's open up the transparency. We got Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press coming up later on in the show to talk about transparency. Also, Reid.
Yeah, Jeff was great. We really appreciate him taking time. He's covering the Winnipeg Jets as they're going through their, trying to run to the playoffs. Thank you so much, Spring League, for coordinating. I did an interview with Stan Bedwell earlier this week, star with the linemen. He is one of the quarterbacks for them. And then he also is one of the coaches. He has a long history with Hal Mummy, who is the coach of the linemen. And, I was watching the broadcast. A lot of people were watching the broadcast on Saturday on Fox. Heard Kevin and Brock tell his story about traveling to Europe and all of that. And I thought, we got to get this guy on, tell his story. And my biggest takeaway from that is that Stan spent, 8 years, 10 years traveling Europe to grow his game. And the value that the Spring League has, paid or not, is something that would maybe help some of these players. And Stan agrees. I mean, we get into all this, but the fact that you maybe wouldn't have to go on that arduous journey to get tape. So thank you so much. I think we're going to get another podcast favorite on next week. I appreciate Sammy and the guys from Spring League for helping to set up that immediate availability. So thank you for that.
Yes. Also, Kyle got his hat. I saw that.
Kyle got his hat. We're going to post the image of that. Kyle got his from doing the review. Kyle, friend of the show now, I guess. He's excited. And Rod's on vacation this week. I think they have their hats. Rod and Darren, we mailed them hats, Markcast hats. So that should be on the show whenever Rod gets back from vacation. So yes, that we are spreading the globe here, and the shipping costs to Canada are not cheap.
I know nothing about that. And anytime I've had anything from Canada, like whenever Nigel sent like audition tapes or whatever, my friend Nigel, who's an actor, I don't know how much it costs. I've never shipped anything to Canada. So.
Yeah. Just a couple words, not too much preface today. There's a ton of news. We're trying to get, Paul's got to work tonight. We're going to get through all this, tons of stuff. Couple things. Someone from 3 Down listening to the podcast, funny enough, blocked last week about 4 hours after the podcast dropped, not blocked anymore. I appreciate that. The 3 Down people from not blocking me as a fellow member of the CFL media now. I do appreciate that. Leonard, I was going to read your email. We got too much news today, buddy. He sent in a photo of his kids meeting the CFL players and video I was going to do a whole thing. We have no time today. We are too busy. Also, Third Down Gamble, I was on this week. I appreciate Don and them reaching out to have me come on. And it was a good chat. I was fired up as Jeff Hamilton is later today. He is fired up about the CFL. I was equally fired up about the XFL on there. So I would really recommend checking that out with the Third Down Gamble on Twitter. And, you can go anywhere. They're on Podbean and stuff, and just search Third Down Gamble. But I thought that was great.
Very cool. Very cool. Oh, you deleted stuff and I was like scrolling down. So,
sorry. Main story. Sorry, I'm killing Paul today. Our good friend Arash Madani back in the news. I sent you this article. What did you think? So Arash came out and said that the CFL season, there's no cohesion in terms of, are they going to play? Are they not going to play? And this stirred up a lot of controversy. What do you think about this?
I'm agreeing with Arash for starters. Right. I know it's hard to do that, but because basically he thinks he's right all the time and he's wrong. This is one of the times he's actually right, because it's like, I think Jeff talks about this too, where it's like the CFL wants to make you part of it and wants to bring you in. And then all of a sudden when you want to be in, then they're like, oh wait, well you're in, but you're not really in. And he talked about, the Fight Club analogy there. And I just like there's nothing wrong in the article that Arash brought up. I mean, there's these health concerns, who knows how fast It just depends on how fast the vaccines get out to people. I mean, you've seen it here in America where once, and I don't want to be political, once Biden got in and promised 100 million shots in his first 100 days and reached that benchmark, you saw cases just plummet. Like cases here just plummeted. So I'm thinking like if vaccine proliferation takes hold in Canada, that is reason to be optimistic. But I think the problem is that everyone's on a different message right now.
Yes.
Health ministers, the league's owners, everyone has their different agendas or their different messages. And I think that is the biggest problem with the CFL right now, is that no one is talking and getting on the same page. And maybe that's why we're not getting transparency.
Yeah, that kills me. Also, I forgot to open my Zoa. We were too excited to get into the show. I'm going to do that. Also, our giveaway, we're almost at 1,300 subscribers. Don't forget, if you want that Spring League merch, you can't buy it from Spring League, but we have 2 shirts. I will ship it out, Canada, US. So please like and subscribe. I even got one of those little subscribe animations, like the little video animations. So I'm going to put that on, but I put that on our interviews too. But yeah, almost at 1,300. We need 200 more, and we are going to do the Jousters merch giveaway. Yes, this is the thing.
I'm all confused now because we backtracked a little bit.
Sorry, I got too excited. Yes, Arash is right. There is a lack of transparency. We talked with this about Jeff, how hard it would be for the CFL to tweet out some stuff, for Ambrosi to come on. Same with the XFL. Mike Mitchell with his article today talking about, on the XFL News Hub, talking about, the lack of news from the XFL as well. It's not that hard to engage with your fans, and it's not that hard to control the message. All you need is a tweet from The Rock saying, "Hey guys, more info to come next week," or whatever, and that would calm whatever. When 3 Down tweeted out the Arash article, they said there's a growing lack of confidence around that the CFL season, that the league will put football on the field in 2021. So then immediately you have Bob Young, the Ticats owner. He said, "This is just a silly tweet. Of course, there'll be a CFL season. I can't speak for anyone else in our league, but I can guarantee the Ticats will play. Although if no one else plays, I suppose we might even win the Grey Cup this year."
Well, I mean, if you can't speak for anyone else in your league, but you're also saying there's going to be a CFL season, make it make sense. You can't, if you can't speak for everyone in your league, you can't say there's going to be a CFL season.
Yeah. You can't. No, a lot of people thought that this was them trying to be on the right side of history. So and I know Darren is filling in for Rod this week. He talked about that too. And I really agreed that, if they do cancel the season, at least then Bob Young can come out and say, "Hey, we were ready to play. We were going to go forward with it. It's not our fault." Right. And I get that. But again, when you're lacking transparency at the very top, and then you have the 9 teams left on their own to kind of do their own devices, this is what you get. And so then Red Black CEO Mark Gowdy responds, "Well, Bob, we're in 2, so you're going to have to go through our nation." So you're getting this banter online. People are feeling positive about it, but we'll get into some of the health stuff here. I mean, I want to be positive too, but I don't know if I like that mixed messaging, and I don't know if the CFL likes that mixed messaging, or if they could even control that. Maybe they have no control over what Bob Young is doing if they're letting him build his own website for the Ticats, as Jeff gets into.
Make a phone call. Get on the same page, please.
And then Craig Dickinson with the Rough Riders, he's the head coach. He said the same thing. "I disagree on this. I believe we will play. I feel quite strongly that the season will start in August. As long as we keep getting our vaccinations, we are going to play." So,
Do you think the reason why these owners are tweeting this stuff out is because they too might be frustrated with the lack of transparency on behalf of the league? Maybe that's what.
I could see that. I could see that a lot. I could see. It's just hard. And we get into this a lot with Jeff. And I liked where his analogy where the CFL wants to be the league for the fans, but then the fans, we don't want to let you know what's going on. And this is the same thing when we're going through the XFL, Spring League a little bit when it came to media stuff. They're opening up a little bit. Obviously we had Stan come on, but the fans want to be invested in your leagues, right? And that was what was so good about the XFL back in 2019 was Bailey, that was running their social media, would engage with the fans, would interact with the fans. The league would come out and say stuff, when they had the big bungle with the 3 seconds left, and the Dragons game and PJ Walker need the ball to her. Like XFL was out right away. Like, okay, this was wrong. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And seeing all of this and being ingratiated now with the CFL, I'm like, the silence is deafening to me. I can't handle this and not knowing what's going on.
Yep. And on that note, that all relies on the pandemic. And I guess what is CDN, like Canadian Department of, I don't know what CDN stands for.
So Sharon Kirky of the National Post up there came out with Post Media. She says, Canadians. That's for Canadians. Sorry. Yeah, Canadians can look forward to having similar tastes of pre-COVID life when 75% of those eligible have received it. How many of those do they have right now, Paul?
4%.
It's not good.
As of Monday, that figure stood at less than 4%. And there's a reason why. It's because I talked about it the other day. My friend up in Toronto, she was like, I got to wait 2 months for my second dose. Like, you shouldn't have to wait 2 months for your second dose. You shouldn't have to wait 4 weeks for your second dose. Well, I mean, if you get the Moderna, yeah, you have to wait the 4 weeks. But you get what I'm saying? It's like, come on. Why is there such a delay between the first and second dose? Because you're not getting enough? Well, we're starting to send you some. So I'm hoping that if they're vigorous with their health department, I don't know what Justin Trudeau's doing up there with this whole thing. He's, other than having like a fake MacBook, there's a picture online. He had like this fake MacBook thing going on. I don't know what he's doing. Like, and I'm not up there and I'm not watching the news up there. So I couldn't tell you how in front of the cameras he is about this whole thing. You would hope that, he was really pushing to get vaccines in people's hands. And especially since we're sending them now, since we have an abundance of them, we're sending them to you. Speed things up.
Yeah, I think the challenge is, and I hear a lot of like, they talk like, in Saskatchewan, we're doing whatever. But it's the varying populations and sizes, right? So what's working in Saskatchewan might not work in, Toronto or whatever. And I think that's part of the problem is like we're seeing, and I see a lot of fans, we're seeing one thing work in one city and they're like, it's like, well, that's not how it works, right? I mean, like Washington State, we're doing far better than other states, right? It's the same thing works up there. This was big that came out. So everyone remembers during the CFL draft 2 weeks ago, Dave Naylor and Farhan, friend of the show, came out and they said that the 6 provinces had all verbally approved the league's return to play. And immediately that people came out and they're like, well, that's not quite the case. We haven't heard all that. Well, now the Alberta government is coming out and saying that they have also not issued an official approval of the return to play policy. So they are joining British Columbia and Ontario in denying that report. And this is according to friend of the show, Dan Ralph. What do you think about kind of, were they jumping the gun with that? What's your takeaway?
My takeaway is that the health department is trusted to make decisions regarding the pandemic. Not everyone. I mean, this pandemic is making its own timetable, its own timeline. And the health department, like I understand these owners are worried about their bottom line financially. Like, I mean,
well, it's hard because, Farhan and Dave Naylor are getting accused of a little bit of spin here, right? Where they're coming out, they're saying, hey, we're approved to play everywhere. We're just waiting. Or our plans are approved. They're not approved to play, but, pending vaccinations and all that. And now you have 3 of the 6 that, where the CFL teams are coming out and saying like, we haven't, he says we've been in contact with them and generally support a safe return to play. Right now, our focus is bending the curve. We'll keep, Albertans updated if there's any decisions made. And that's the Tom McMillan, who is the director of communications for Alberta Health. So, like,
is this a semantics debate, like where they're saying they submitted a plan, but what Alberta's talking about are the protocols? The plan being the schedule when they want to go. But Alberta's being more specific, like, oh, well, what are you going to do when you get to that? When you open up the schedule? You think that they're being semantics debates here?
I don't think so. I mean, this feels very bad to me. Like this is, to me, is a bad look on, to me, this is TSN. We're talking about wanting to come out, control the narrative. They come out and say this, but then you have 3. I mean, that to me is where I took from it. And that's why to me, it doesn't feel so good. And now this the Alberta thing just came out yesterday when we record. So, I mean, this is still kind of, and this started with the draft, 2 weeks ago. So it feels weird. I don't think it's a semantics thing. I think it's them trying to control the narrative and getting caught in kind of a lie.
Well, I mean, TSN has a financial, stake in this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's not accusing them of doing that, but we have to take that into account. They do have a financial stake in making sure CFL hits the field.
Well, yeah.
And again, maybe lack of transparency from the league is causing people to speculate about these things.
Yeah. So this came out as we recorded last Friday. City of Toronto canceled all major outdoor events through September 6th.
Enjoy Buffalo, Blue Jays. Keep enjoying Buffalo in Florida.
Well, it's not, it's not good. I mean, they were still talking about, and I got into this week with some listeners too, that, they've talked about, and I talked about this on the Third Down Hustle or the Third Down Gamble. I keep calling it that, Third Down Gamble. This whole plan, okay, we're going to have some teams play in other stadiums. The CFL does not do revenue sharing like the NFL. So if you have fans, if you have the Rough Riders playing in wherever, in Hamilton or wherever, and the fans go, are you writing a check for the Rough Riders? Are you writing a check for the BC Lions to host someone? I don't get where that's going to work. And I haven't seen, and I think that's where the thing too is this transparency and everything else. Ambrosi comes out and goes, well, we're going to ship some of the teams east to the west to play, but yet literally no other logistics about that at all, about how any of that's going to work. Well, here's the deal. They need fans in the seats and they need money from those fans. So when the fans are in those stadiums, where is that money going? One would obviously assume they're going to split it up, but that's not something that I believe the CFL traditionally does. Are they going to buck the trend? That's fine, but then that's something you can talk about, right?
And I mean, there's also I'm also thinking about the NHL. There are 4 teams in Canada playing each other, and then one team comes out of that and plays the winner of the West. Where are they playing these games after they get out of their bracket? They're not going to play any home games in Canada. It's weird.
It's weird.
Especially since Toronto has looked great all year and might potentially give people are picking the Avalanche, but I'm thinking Vegas. Where are people going to play games? If Toronto's saying no till September 6th, MLS soccer also affected.
It's weird. We talked about Bonnie Henry, not Bonnie Hammer of USA Network. We're talking about Bonnie Henry. It says that fans can return to BC later this summer and that they're going to do a UK-styled monitor of the events. On May 3rd, she said it wasn't likely, but now this week she's softening her tone. And she says they're watching the UK where they've done experiments. They're doing planned events where people are monitored before and after to see if transmissions happen. We're looking into things like that. We are May 20th. So I don't know how long those experiments take to figure out, right? Mm-hmm. One would presume if the UK is doing that and sending people home, you have to wait, weeks to see transmissions and stuff. I mean, you get what I'm saying? Okay, we're a month away from potentially the CFL announcing another delay if they're not going to hit that August 5th.
Yep. I mean, I like the idea of controlled, spectators where they're okay, we're going to monitor. You're going to take one test now to get approved, and then you'll take another test the day before. And, that's a good way to go about it. That's definitely a good way to go about it. But I don't know. I think what it is, it boils down to vaccines.
Don't read this Rob Van something. Yeah, I'm going to move it here. Down below, but it's interesting about that. So here's the other thing. So Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe touts vaccinations as a plan. He came out this week and said, we've charted our course in this pandemic. We've been able to do that because of the effects. He feels like they're going to have Saskatchewan, we're filling the stadiums, we're doing whatever. And Rob Vanstone, friend of the show, came out. He wrote this great article I read. Scott Moe's hype provides a semblance of hope. So much has to happen for a well-attended Rough Riders game to materialize, but the mere introduction of that possibility is a positive sign.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely optimistic, and I think it just again boils down to those vaccines. And if we in America can turn around our cases with vaccines, where people are getting vaccines, I think we have at least 64% of Americans have at least got their first dose here. And if we could turn this thing around with vaccines, I mean, it's that Scott Moe. I like his optimism. I do.
The problem is now you're having these health authorities come out, right? And that's who's getting quoted now, right? Like Scott Moe or Bonnie Henry. And obviously we want to trust in the doctors and trust in the medical, but could we have had a coordinated message with some of the CFL offices or the league? You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm saying, like, you kind of have all these bits and pieces coming up. And like, this is a perfect example of this. So the Quebec Premier, Francois Legault, delivered positive news for sports fans in Montreal on Tuesday. And he's saying that they want to have 25 people at Bell Center beyond May 28th, right, for the games up there. Literally that same day, Dr. Howard Njoo, is that how you say that? Down the bottom, NJOO, Canada's Deputy Chief Public Health Officer, said allowing fans into games is not under serious consideration at this point.
This big, I mean, look, the doctors are looking at the data right now. They're like saying only 4% of the people are vaccinated beyond their second dose, which means they're safe to be around people. Especially, as the CDC in America says, if you're vaccinated and you're outside, you can drop the mask. In certain situations, if you're indoors, you can drop the mask. Only 4% of your population is vaccinated. And they're looking at how long it took to get that 4% vaccinated and going, okay, if it's the end of May and it took this long to get 4%, we're only talking about 7%. And that's 7% of all Canada. That's not 7% of, Saskatchewan has 7%. Then Quebec has 24%. They're looking at the data going, if we only have this little portion vaccinated, the numbers don't add up to allow that many people into an indoor venue. That's what these doctors are looking at. That's why we have to trust these doctors. They're looking at the data. The stuff that people are saying, the premiers and the owners of these teams aren't looking at data real time every flipping minute to determine how many people are being vaccinated, the percentage, and all of that stuff. That's why it's like, I want these entities to communicate. I want the doctors to explain the seriousness of the data, because it doesn't seem like anyone else outside of the doctors understands the data.
Well, and I cut it for time. We had a quote with Bonnie Henry. She's talking that basically they're not making any decisions now through Memorial Day at least. And she's like, we're not talking about CFL right now. Like, we're talking about ICUs. And then we had, I think Howard Nugent, Dr. Howard Nugent too. I had a soundbite from him where he's like, we don't care about the CFL right now. Like, we don't care. Right.
Care about saving lives. That's what they care about.
So it is hard. But this was odd to me that you have both of these kind of very contradictory, from two different, very public figures coming out about this. Anyway, we have a lot of XFL, CFL stuff after the break. Do you want to toss to Jeff, and then let's bring Jeff in here after the break, and we'll talk to him. And he's got some great stuff to say. Jeff Hamilton, Winnipeg Free Press, coming up right after this. Jeff Hamilton joining us now from the Winnipeg Free Press. Jeff, how's it going, man?
Oh, things are great, man. It's a pleasure to be on talking football. Any opportunity to talk football, whether it be the CFL or XFL, or in this case, both, is awesome. So great to be here.
Yeah, before we get to that, though, Winnipeg winning now Wednesday night. What do you? How do you think it's going to go in that series against? Who is it? Who are they playing?
Ontario.
Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid led Edmonton Oilers. Yeah, the down 0-1 Edmonton Oilers they're playing. Yeah, you know what? I think the series is certainly. I predicted Oilers in 7. I don't know how much you guys know about the history between these two teams, particularly this season, but not that great for Winnipeg. They end up finishing 3rd in the North Division. Edmonton finishing 2nd, obviously, to be their first round opponents. But they beat the Jets 6 games in a row in the regular season leading into the playoffs. So a lot of people, I mean, rightfully so, had them as underdogs, and and they were of course saying all the right things as far as this is a new clean slate, this is a new season, yada yada yada. And my thing for weeks was, well, that's great. It's great that everyone's propping each other up to this tough situation, and they had gone also through a 7-game losing streak late in the season, so it was kind of just magnified a team that looked like they were overproducing, if you will, because a lot of teams had them hovering around 4th, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, maybe these guys are pretenders. So all that played into their attitude and energy going into game 1, and they proved it. So again, it's game 1, as we know in any kind of playoffs. It's great to get that victory, but it's going to be a long series, and Connor McDavid was held pointless, and that was something he certainly didn't do a lot this season, particularly against the Jets. So to have him kind of be off the score sheet, I don't think you can bank on that, if you will. So certainly a good start, but it will be a long series for sure.
How cool is it to get how cool was it when you guys got the Jets back, by the way?
Oh man, it was like a massive moment for the province. I mean, you kind of, to understand the magnitude of getting them back, you kind of have to understand a bit about their exit. And I was 10 years old at the time, and I was part of that. Like, I mean, we were going door to door collecting pennies, throwing them in this this big large bin, if you will, to kind of save the Jets campaign. And so it was a tough pill to swallow back then, for sure. I mean, I remember being at like the goodbye Jets farewell, with all the players obviously coming on the ice and in their jerseys and kind of waving a goodbye as they headed off to Arizona in the desert. And then it was just kind of, okay, I guess that's it. Again, I was only 10 years old, so I don't think I had that emotional. I definitely remember them leaving and it sucking, but I wasn't that, in my adult age and fandom. And that's kind of funny, right? Because it works well for me as a journalist now, because I am super objective, because I don't have a tie to the Jets as much as a lot of people, even some of my colleagues have, just kind of knowing that history and stuff, and going back even to the WHA days before they merged with the NHL. So I mean, as far as them coming back in 2011, man, that's like a defining moment to a lot of people in this province, and particularly in this city, and to see them having, have some success. Obviously, their biggest playoff run was in 2018 when they made it to the Western Conference Final and ended up losing out to Vegas in their first season. That was a big run for the city, and now the expectations are high. So now it's kind of like that whole love affair is kind of over, and now it's like, okay, guys, this is. We expect good things, big things every season. So big moment in our city's history, big moment for our city in general, just the economy, putting us on the map. And, so other places, whether it be in the States or around the world, would recognize us, just given, the NHL and whatnot. So certainly a massive moment in 2011 when the Jets are coming back.
Yeah, you talk about not having too much, being able to cover something a little bit more objectively, because we certainly run into that a little bit with the CFL stuff, right? With a lot of passion, a lot of all this history of all these, the fans and the reporters and stuff we talked to. When we announced that you were going to come on, one of our guests, listeners said, "Oh, Jeff's going to be so insightful," and he meant bringing wisdom, I think. And I said, well, he spelled it insightful, as in bringing anger and rage. And I go, well, that would be far more like Arash Madani coming on, and hopefully you would bring a little bit more. Paul and I, we have a lot of different takeaways today with, all the team owners tweeting, all the health stuff, the different provinces. Where do you start today? What is top of your mind with things that we should be talking about in terms of CFL?
See, right now, I think we're almost kind of in that like wait and see period, right? Because I mean, we're the new schedule, as you guys know and have talked about for weeks, being August 5th, the expectation to start that date. Will we start that date? Won't we start that date? The reality is we've kind of been in a bit of a holding pattern and waiting on COVID-19 and where the numbers are, not just in number of cases in the various provinces, but also the vaccination rates. And then you look at the age groups that are getting vaccinated, and those numbers are refreshing. But I think the real date we're looking for now, guys, is mid-June, because you can't just kind of say you're going to play on August 5th and not make a definitive statement. A decision needs to be made in the next few weeks here. And I'd say by latest June, you need to make a decision if this is going to be possible. So in either, mid-June, it's either going to be, okay, the plan is a go. We're going to start August 5th. This is when we're going to have the players in, yada, 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 more of those details, or another announcement saying, look, the COVID numbers aren't working. Vaccination isn't where we expected it to be at this point. We're going to have to push back. And then at that point, I think you really need to nail down a date and stick to it. Because, if you're going any further past, Labor Day weekend, which is a big weekend in the CFL in September. So like, that would be like not an ideal time to start, but it would also be an ideal time to start, all things considering. So that's the kind of what we're waiting for is really the COVID numbers and ultimately an announcement to be made in mid-June about the future of the 2021 season.
With the news this week, Arash had this article with 3 down. You had with the Tiger Cats and the Red Blacks, everybody, Rough Riders tweeting. The big thesis of our episode today is kind of like this silence, right? And we're the same way with XFL fans. Do you think the CFL should be saying more and doing more now besides letting kind of these team owners run amok, for lack of a better word?
Yeah. So loaded. Transparency, right? I mean, that's been a topic that you guys have been hammering on for a while. It's something that I certainly think needs to be improved by this league. And the reality is like we're in year 2, right? So like this whole process from last year was kind of this wait and see, right? So the leash, I think, for fans is getting shorter and shorter, right? Like, I mean, it was a year ago that it was like, okay, we're going to wait. We're not, the CFL was kind of viewed early on as being kind of the league that was in the best situation because unlike the NHL, the NBA, they weren't playing. So they didn't have to go through this massive stop. It was, no one really knew what this, COVID-19 would evolve to, or maybe we did, but we maybe weren't really buying it or expecting it to be that great in 2020, right? To be this issue. But ultimately it became the worst situation for them because now they're waiting. And then, so we went through this whole process of like, okay, yep, it's not going to start on time. Then it was a new proposed date, and then it was silence, and then it was another proposed date, and then it was this big adventure to create this bubble here in Winnipeg for what would have been a 6-game season, and ultimately that didn't work out. And then in between all of that was the work with the government and the lack of communication with players, and there was that fight. So everyone was kind of had that as a backdrop. And then when they ultimately canceled the season, it was like, okay, maybe, some people even came out, I'm not saying pundits, but fans for sure came out and said, well, yeah, maybe it was actually a great thing that the CFL didn't play. They would have been screwed and yada, yada, but, gung ho for 2021. Well, here we are. So at this point in time, I just think it's more or less I would like the league to say that this is our plan. This is our backup plan. These are our contingency plans so that people can start planning, not just people, but players and everyone involved in the CFL can get a better idea of how to plan the future. Now, when your future is based on a ever-evolving pandemic, you can't be as clear and concise. But when you have guys like Bob Young, who's the owner of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, saying, we will be playing this year. And you have, people in Montreal ownership who, as you guys know, are new, kind of just bought the team at the worst possible time at the end of 2019. They're saying they're going to play that. Not money isn't an issue, but ultimately money is not the problem here. We are going to put a product on. You set an expectation that things are going to happen. So to me, I don't even know if it's a guarantee that they're going to play this year, let alone when they're going to play. So I think, as far as like, should they be more open? I think there's certainly an argument to the transparency, but this has been an issue. Transparency has been an issue with this league for a long time. And it's been not only an issue in the lack of transparency, but it contradicts directly of what they claim to be. And that's the most accessible league in pro sports, right? Like most accessible to players, most accessible to their product. Like you're part of this. We need you and kind of thing. And obviously every professional league needs fans. They need that support. But the CFL tries to kind of put their arm around you and say, come on in and be part of this. Well, when crap hits the fan, you kind of hope that you're part of that, right? And I go back to my earlier comments, like you understood that they couldn't play in 2020. You got to a point where you're no longer angry with the league for kind of dragging this along. And now, fast forward a year and we're kind of seeing this movie play out again. And then you throw the XFL on top of it and tensions are high, right? Tensions are at an all-time high because nobody has the answer. So, and including the CFL, the thing is they have a schedule in front of them right now. They know what it looks like at the moment. They just aren't sharing it with fans because I think they're trying to balance that line of being straight up, but also being realistic. And unfortunately for them, I don't think they're playing that dance very well, or at least they could be playing it a lot better.
I mean, if the CFL doesn't play this season, what does that mean for the CFL?
See, like, I think there's lots of thoughts to that. I think there's a lot of people, obviously, that would say the CFL's doomed if they don't play for a second year in a row. And I think out of sight, out of mind is a very powerful thing in pro sports. I don't think it maybe even unheard of in pro sports. But I think there's obviously truth to that. I mean, I think if you have fair weather fans, you're going to lose those fans, or a good chunk of those fans. I think you're going to lose any momentum. Like, if you look at particular teams, I mean, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers snapped a 29-year curse. They won the Grey Cup. They would have loved to reap the benefits of that next year, or that momentum coming in. So, I think there certainly is a problem. I don't even love the September start. I don't love the August start, right? Because we already wiped out an entire season. Now it's kind of the late stages of the year. So you're already kind of in a position, not a great position. So at this point, I mean, the CFL's been through so much, and they've been through not something obviously like this, but I do think they'll survive if they don't play another year. And in fact, but I think you look back at things, and even if you go to last year, like I was of the mind that they should have shut the lights out early, right? Like, I mean, we started seeing teams losing $7 million. The Bombers lost 10, but it was actually 7 with the government subsidies that they had, or they took advantage of. So, like, I mean, to me, a lot of that's salaries, like employee salaries, some player bonuses and stuff like that, and having these coaches stay on, like, there's somehow an unlimited amount of opportunity for professional coaches out there, and if they don't get a job if they don't get paid their $500,000 in some cases, that they're going to go somewhere else is kind of ludicrous. So, like, I feel like they made their bed in a lot of ways by not shutting down, realizing, and this is an ego thing, guys, it's a pride thing, is that you're trying to be big time football, but you run it like a mom and pop shop. So it's like, that goes to the contradiction of things, where it's like, if you actually wanted your league to survive, or the teams to not post these massive losses, you'd shut her down immediately and realize that you're never going to get up from this, and that you're not in a financial position, not just in your business model, but even though you have billion-dollar owners in some cases, a willingness to put that money forward. So acknowledging that, especially for the community teams, guys, the Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Saskatchewan, like, they would have benefited from shutting the lights off immediately. The fact that they're posting anywhere between $7 and $10 million losses, I'm not going to say is unforgivable, but it's just kind of, you look back on it and you go, wow, that money could have been really useful. And where exactly did it go? So I don't even know what the question is at this point, but in this rant, but at the same time, I feel like this is the year where, you've now kind of, I don't want to say painted yourself into a corner, but now you're telling everybody you're going to play this year, and you're going to take massive losses. It just feels like if you put things into a 2-year window, just can't help but to think that some of these damages were self-inflicted.
No, and you're good. Like, where do we start? I don't know. That was great. I love that. Love the passion behind that. It's just so frustrating to me. And Paul and I were talking about this before we got on, about the whole crypto thing right now, and Elon and Twitter. And it's so easy nowadays to control a narrative on social media, and it's really easy to let it go away, right? And to me, having the CFL come out and once a week and tweet an update, it's the same thing we're dealing with the XFL. And I feel like it's this lost opportunity where, a billion little things are going on social media in between every single time that they post. And it's just getting, people are arguing with each other and all this kind of stuff. I mean, what do you wish we could be seeing right now from Ambrosie, from the rest of the management? Maybe what are some things that they could be doing better?
To me, I think, I mean, not to harp on transparency, but like, let's face it, guys, I don't know what you guys know about Global 2.0, this kind of expansion thing that the CFL has been all about since Randy Ambrosie took over as commissioner, and that kind of conversation was even before he was there. But that vision was built on Canada's reputation and building amongst countries around the world, not including the US. In fact, it was built on, look at the chaos that's going on in the US politically, all these things. We can identify with the world of who we want to be and bring these countries in. That was literally the sales point. Randy Ambrosi told me this a number of times in our interviews, and I don't understand why this doesn't ever get brought up. Now you're in bed with the Americans. Now the lifeline of your league is built on this partnership, alignment, whatever you want to call it, with the XFL, and it completely contradicts what you've been saying for years. Now, obviously, this is pivoting. It's a whether the XFL is a lifeline, an opportunity, whatever it may be. There are things that are broken with the CFL, and a common thing that I've used is, if you had pre-existing conditions before the pandemic hit, they just magnified. And that was the situation with the CFL. They already had issues. They were already beating their chest about being this big, glorious league, but they were losing $20 million a season. Like, there's no one in their right mind who would buy the CFL. Now, the CFL is a good product. It's a good game. It has a long history and all those things. But when the announcement came out with the XFL that we were announcing that we're having conversations with the XFL, you damn right the CFL knew what that would do. They knew that even the mention of the of U.S. expansion was going to rattle cages. Whether it's a better situation now, which obviously you can make that argument, than it was decades ago when they went down, and that was just a completely. You wish there was social media back then, because you'd get a little bit more of the information behind the scenes, and thank God there wasn't. But the situation now is very not simple, but it's they've now announced that they're having conversation, and you wouldn't do that unless you were far down the line. And as we know, they've been having these conversations for months. So this is just a roundabout way of saying, well, where is this headed, right? Where are we going with this? You've now pulled the rabbit out of the hat, exposed it to everybody, and now you just think it's just going to just sit there and no one's going to ask about it. No one's going to wonder what the next step is. I mean, once you bring that into play, everyone wants to know, are the rules going to stay? Are the teams going to stay? What does it look like as far as the Grey Cup obviously being a massive piece of this puzzle? Like all these traditions are now are in danger, or at the very least are in question, and fans are like, well, what? And then the CFL is like, whoa, we're just having conversations. Well, no, you're not just having conversations. You're slowly pulling the Band-Aid off, and in the meantime, you're alienating your fans and also leaving them in the dark. So to me, it's just one of those things where you can kind of explain what's happening. I know it's difficult, especially as you try to have a traditional CFL season this year. Because obviously this is in the future, but obviously those conversations have gotten to a point where maybe there isn't definitive rule changes, but we're not here testing the waters anymore, guys. I mean, this is happening. This is the future of this league. We just don't know what it looks like. And I think if anything, that could be painted a bit better. But the reality is the CFL will treat their fans like, they don't know what's good for them, and they don't want, but they're also thinking of the bottom line. This season, they don't want to get fans. If fans are going to leave when it's confirmed that the XFL and the CFL are now a partnership, well, they'd rather those fans leave next year than this season. And I think that's why we're sitting here wondering what the heck's going on.
So why is there such a blind loyalty from CFL fans to the CFL against any type of merger? Why does that exist?
Well, why is there a blind loyalty? Like, why are most fans up in arms on why this might or will happen? I think it's just that. I think a lot of people, we also live in this world where we think like Twitter is kind of the universe, and that the dominating opinion on social media is somehow the prevailing opinion within our communities. And I don't think that's the case, especially in the CFL, where there's an older fan base. Now, I'm not trying to, say there isn't a young fans that are interested, but a predominant fan base for the Canadian Football League is older people, and most older people are not on social media per se. Obviously, some are, but I think there's a lot of conversations happening in people's living rooms where it's like they've already ruled out the CFL, or they're not happy with the CFL. And I think it's one of those things where it's part history, right? Like, it's part thinking like, this is our game, guys. I mean, this has been one of those things where it's the t-shirts have been made, the slogans have been abused for years and years and years. It's not like someone came out and was like, ooh, the big bad NFL, and then here's the CFL. This is our game. Like, for a long time, it's not the case anymore. Like, our balls are bigger, our field is bigger. Like, there was an identity to it. So once you start talking about incorporating a completely different entity that threatens to change that identity, to change those traditions, and not to have any kind of understanding as to what, because like those people on social media also aren't getting the information that some people are getting too. So they're kind of sitting there having conversations with their friends that are probably a bit uneducated and fueled with the belief that, okay, this is just the beginning of the end, and not maybe seeing some of the broader concerns, issues within the CFL, and certainly some of the positives that could come out of joining a leadership group, such as the XFL.
What do you, as someone that covers the league, as a fan that lives, what do you want to see come from this?
You know what, I know, yeah, because I watched like 4 or 5 of your podcasts, and I knew this question was coming. So, to me, it was like early on, I immediately thought, wow, The Rock is on a press release attached to the CFL, and I called his camp and I said, hey, my deadline's not for like 2 months. So just to leave that window open in case The Rock wanted to call me. I haven't got that call, and I'm not sure if the 2 months is up yet, but we'll see. But I thought, immediately I thought, okay, this is interesting for sure. As I mentioned before, just given the whole global expansion plan. But I originally thought, okay, this is The Rock. This is Danny Garcia, who has a lot of obviously experience in building brands. You have Redbird Capital, who has money and now an interest in expanding their sports portfolio and all those things. And the one thing that the CFL has had issues with is being cool. I mean, people don't wear CFL caps and not even know CFL. Like, they don't have that brand, right? They don't have things that like people want to jump at. In fact, it's the opposite. They've struggled to be cool. They've struggled to get a younger audience. They've struggled at all these things that you look at the personnel behind the XFL and you go, wow, those are all answers potentially to these massive problems and these massive issues that the CFL has in growing the game and growing their product. So that was kind of my first little bit. Then I started kind of thinking like, not that I was against it. I didn't flip-flop, but it's just the way in which things are happening, right? To me, what kind of bothers me is that the CFL Board of Governors is an old, tired group. Like they are. The leadership, they don't have creative ideas. They sit in a room. I'm not going to say they just yell at each other, but they all have their own agendas for a long time. Some teams got this, some teams got that. Like the Hamilton Tiger Cats didn't even have a website that matched the rest of the league for years because Bob Young owns a computer software company. So he was allowed to do this. Other deals have been made in the past, whether it be for merchandise and stuff. So everyone, and then there's the community-owned team that's like, okay, sit down and shut up because we're the ones digging our hands into our pockets and pay money. So there was this like weird kind of dynamic, and I think they just got in their own way. Now that isn't that's a very, very shrunk down, simplified version. But there's things that I see at the CFL that I, like if they're, whether it's their producing of content, like traveling to find players out. Like this one summer, they like traveled like the globe and watched players work out. Like that's a waste of money. Like you don't need that. No one cares about that. When guys aren't staying on teams for longer than a couple of years, like no one needs to do that. Like, so there's a lot of decisions I've questioned, but at the end of it, I just find that like these guys haven't figured out a way to grow the game. So like, to me, I know that there is advantages to joining the XFL. I know there are disadvantages to the CFL and losing that kind of product or that identity that you've had that you built over decades. So I understand that stuff. I don't know where I fall. And I kind of use Dan Barnes's comment that you guys had I don't have any stake in the game, but I do understand the frustration from Canadian fans that know that it's a handful of people making these decisions for them, that are telling them this is for the good of you, when in fact they're just focused on the bottom line. Now this is a business. So MLSE, the relationship with Montreal, the way things work in that regard. So it's like they're making the decision not based on what's good for the Canadian game. They're making a decision what's good for the future of this league. And I don't know if those things are being communicated as well, and therefore aren't being aligned with the hardcore fans that you ultimately need on your side, regardless of what happens in the future.
Totally makes sense. Jeff Hamilton, Winnipeg Free Press. Want to thank you for coming on and talking with us today about CFL, XFL stuff, and a little bit about the Jets.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun, guys. It's great.
We really appreciate you taking the time out, kind of working and getting all these people on. And so we appreciate that. And thank you so much. Well, I like the passion. I will say that. So
we could have gone into so much too. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's great to talk football. It's great to talk with guys like yourselves who, obviously dedicate the time and energy into this and who knows what the future holds. Because at the end of the day, like, I think I'm with a lot of people where we just want to see football be played again and fans attending these games and really get things going. So, whatever happens in the future here, I'll be reporting it and covering it, and as will you. And, I'm sure our paths will cross in the future.
We'll definitely
if we do have a Grey Cup this year, are you going to head to the Grey Cup this year?
Every year, man. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know you guys have confirmed and committed to that too. I'll just add that it is a great week, great people. It doesn't matter. It's the opposite of the Super Bowl, right? It's I'm not going to say the game means nothing, obviously, for those fans whose teams are in it, but it really is about the week leading up to it, and then the game's the game. Whereas obviously in the Super Bowl, it's kind of the opposite. So definitely worth going, guys, for sure.
I'm a wedding videographer, so that's my off-season. I might just take residency up there for the whole month of December, and we'll party.
Book a deal. I'm sure there's lots of people looking to get their weddings done and double booked and all that other stuff. So who knows? Put it out there and maybe you can double dip while you're down.
Really appreciate you coming. We'll definitely have you back. This was great.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Support for the Markcast brought to you by Manscaped. They are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. They're the champions of the world when it comes to that. Trust me, I've been using them for years. They offer precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer. Oh, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right. The 4.0. You can join over 2 million men, including me, worldwide, who trust Manscaped. Got an exclusive offer for you. 20% off, free worldwide shipping with the code MARKCAST at manscaped.com. Use the code MARKCAST at manscaped.com. Reid, you have yours. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say, so I was listening to Will House last week, your other podcast, and Manscaped has also graciously sponsored that podcast. And we talk about the benefits of the trimmer, and it's got the light on there. And Will, your co-host, was like laughing, right? Like, what is this? I used it in the shower. It's very dark in the shower. The light is really nice. I think that's the best feature of the whole damn thing is that stupid LED light on there. I loved it.
Wait, it's really bright. Super bright.
Because you think, you're like, well, does my light... Most places you're going to do that is not like a brightly lit... Yeah, so I thought it was great.
The light is like beaming down on you, and there's shadows naturally that exist. Depending on how out of shape you might be after COVID, there might be a bigger shadow on your junk. So the light is helpful to kind of get you around those areas that you're not able to see. Like you might miss a spot. The light helps. The light helps to show those little hairs that might not show up on just a naked eye without a light examination. We love the light, basically. We love the light.
Personal information, the battery comes slightly pre-charged, ran out of battery power as I was using it before I charged it. That's how much manscaping was needed. So just a little tip for tat on that. There you go. That's your TMI for the day.
Thanks for that. Did that help your confidence? Did that help your confidence to get Manscaped down there? Like, did it help?
I feel good. I'm happy.
Feel great. The blade is awesome. As long as you cut at the right angle. Will kind of had some issues where he was just really testing out how many different angles you can come at this thing. It's like, bro, just it's designed to where you don't need to come at it at a certain angle that would ever cause you to get cut. And that's why this skin safe technology on this ceramic blade is so awesome. You can also put a guard on it. If you don't want to go completely clean, you can put one of those guards on it that come with the 4.0. It's awesome. The wireless charging, everything's cool about this thing. Again, 20% off, free shipping with the code MARKCAST at manscaped.com. 20% off free shipping, manscaped.com. Use the code MARKCAST. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Thanks, Jeff Hamilton.
Jeff was great. Loved it.
He was on fire. Loved it. Loved the fire. Canadians, they're nice, they're polite, but when you get them about stuff they're passionate about, they come out and they're very passionate people, and we loved having Jeff on. Loved having basically all of our Canadian guests outside of Arash, all of them outside of Arash. We've loved having them on. So it's it's great to chat with people like that who, have the passion and understand the benefits of everything, can hold those two separate thoughts in their head and still work and operate with their speech.
I will say, we got an email this week. They're like, quit talking about Arash, that, rent free, all this. I'm like, I'm still asked about it all the time. So what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Like, I get it. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. I don't lose sleep over it. But if people ask about it, we're going to talk about it. I mean, I don't care. I'm not whatever. But anyway, love everything that came from this. So star CFL quarterback Bo Levi Mitchell, not related to XFL insider Mike Mitchell, although Mike is considering changing his middle name to Bo. He did this whole lengthy article this week on the Bob McCown podcast. And it was, a lot of different stuff, CFL, whatever. But his big thing was about preserving the CFL game. And I pulled some of these quotes. I mean, the interview was extensive. Paul, you see some of these quotes. I don't want the history of the Canadian game to go away. I would never want that to happen. But if we want the Canadian game to grow, I think a merger would be an absolutely phenomenal thing.
Yes, because more eyeballs on the product means more money all around. And you put you have CFL teams that are going into USA markets like St. Louis and Seattle and potentially San Diego. Who knows? Who knows where they're going to end up putting the XFL teams when this thing goes back on. You have these teams going into these markets. It's growing the game. You're getting eyeballs on the rules of the Canadian game. And, Americans maybe go, wow, I like the 3-down thing. Or, wow, I like the multiple man in motion thing. Or, wow, that rouge is kind of interesting. I'm not sure I like that, but it's a talking point. A talking point, and it's an interesting talking point nonetheless. And I think Bo Levi gets it.
I tweeted, so this is the other quote, and I tweeted, I said, get this man out of my head. He goes, if you tie the rock to anything, and he's got some big friends, so maybe he gets Drake to buy in on the CFL side. You get this game a little bit younger. No offense, spelled with the C, to the older viewers, Mitchell said. We are trying to say that our game is 100 years old, and we have this is like I wrote this interview. We are trying to say this game is 100 years old, and we have no reason to change. I love this game with all my heart, but things have to change if we want the game to grow. It is not going to die the way that it is. If not, it's going to, yes, that very much changes the context of that quote.
Understands what we've been saying from the get-go. Like, you have to grow this game. You're not going to sit there and just think, well, this global draft thing will work. Well, how's it going to work when there's no season? How's it going to work when you're not playing any games? You have to grow within North America and make it, viable here before you think about making it viable other places.
I loved this, the tagline, the lower part of this article, because 3 down did the whole big write-up of it. They never cease to get their jabs in. This is copied from the article. 3 down. The original XFL lasted one full season in 2001 and lasted just part of one season before COVID-19 pandemic put the 2020 season on hold, which led to Vince McMahon filing, selling it, whatever. Meanwhile, Grey Cup, it should be the Grey Cup, JC or whoever wrote this article. Meanwhile, Grey Cup has been awarded for over 100 years in Canada. I go, never ceases to get their jabs in. Heaven forbid we have one CFL player saying, hey, I think this might be a good idea. Keep in mind, the CFL has awarded their trophy for 100 years. I'm like, you guys are crazy. Like, get out of your, I could cuss on here. I'm really kind of done with all this, but I'm like, you guys are crazy. They never cease to get their jabs in.
Nope. They're always they have to, it's like, does Arash pay you guys a salary to get those jabs in? Is that what's happening? Is that what's hot in the streets?
That's weird.
Tell me. I'd like to know.
I want to tweet there's no good way. Where did The Rock hurt you as a child? Show me on but I don't want to, because I don't want to get into whatever. But it is crazy. One other thing, I thought this was interesting. Farhan was on with Naylor. They were talking about consolidating a lot of the CFL stuff. And Farhan was talking about, potentially they could be hiring some seasonal workers, right? As opposed to having people back on full staff. And I tweeted, I go, remember when Jason Greger was on last week and he goes, build the game all year, market the game all year, invest fans all year. I go, yeah, hiring seasonal workers. That's a great way to do that.
That's, well, we didn't renew the contract for a Twitter person. They're off on leave for the next 6 months. We're not going to tweet anything. Our YouTube video editors, they're laid out. We only have them 8 months out of the 12 months, so you're not getting any highlights. You're not getting any behind the scenes things. You're not getting any post things. You're not getting interviews with any players you might want to be invested in. Oh, the draft is coming up. Well, our YouTube guy, not there.
Sorry. I had Tots McGee. He commented. He goes, "Well, in your business, like, what do you do?" I go, "I'm not a sports league, and I can market my business fine. I don't need CFL." They're not marketing. Like, I can run my stuff all the time. And if I need to, I can hire somebody, but I'm not basing my small business in Seattle as a videographer off of the Canadian Football League and trying to equate those two things I'm like, I didn't even have time to get into it last night. I spent 4 hours putting together this show. This is the point where if you would like to subscribe, I would really appreciate it. 3 down, Monday mailbag. John Hodge answers a question about he goes, "Hey, the right person wrote in and goes, do you think the CFL-XFL is about a merger or creating a development league?" And his quote is, "The CFL-XFL are talking about a full-blown merger. For better words, you can take that to the bank." Paul, why does John Hodge hate the XFL if we are moving towards a full-blown merger and he is talking about it on his podcast?
Why does he hate the XFL?
Why do you hate it? If you're talking about this happening and you're crapping on it every single day, I don't understand that mentality. I'll never understand that.
It's a lifeline. It's a way to grow the game. Like,
I didn't get that. I'm like, so you're admitting on your podcast, yeah, like we're totally moving to the football merger. Yeah, I'm going to crap on The Rock and Danny and all that as long as we can.
Yeah, we'll take your money and we'll take all your marketing advice, but your product sucks.
Yeah, it's very odd. We're still talking about the 20 million. We're blasting through stuff. We're getting through all this. We're still talking about legalization of single game sports betting. Farhan had a story this week. Could be worth $20 million annually for the CFL teams. It'd be like $2 million, per team, roughly. And then I have a takeaway at the bottom of this. Do you have any thoughts about that number, the CFL? We've talked about single game betting in the past.
I'm still kind of trying to figure out and parse information here as to how this ends up in the hands of the CFL. I mean, I am under the opinion here in America that there's only 2 parties that are involved in betting. There's the casino, there's the book, and then there's you. Maybe I'm unaware of how betting in America works. Someone, if you know, correct me.
I got into it with a friend of the show, Braden, about this because my thing was, I said a large portion. I go, if a large portion of Canadians aren't attending the games and watching the games on TV, I don't see how being allowed to bet on them is going to make them bet. And Braden corrected me, and this many people watch and all that stuff. I go, so it's 10% of the country watches. So that is true. A large portion of Canada doesn't watch. If you're telling me 10% watch the games every week, that is 90% of people. So whatever. But those people are going to bet. I don't get how you're going to get other people that are like, yeah, I don't watch this or attend this or follow this or care about this, but I'm going to go bet on it right now just because it's football. I just don't think that happens.
I think anybody who bets regularly is aware of their product they're betting on. Right?
Yeah. Are you going to learn about the CFL just to bet?
No. That'd be ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I think that's what they're hoping, but I'm like, I just don't see that happening. I don't see.
Of things. They hope for a lot of things. And it's like, you can hope in one hand and crap in the other and see which one fills up first. It's out of control. Like, hope for these things. Like, it's great. But if you're not already invested in a league, you're not going to just go, oh, well, I'm going to learn about it now because I like to gamble. No, you're going to gamble on other things you can like. You're already invested in.
Yeah. The one interesting takeaway from this was Farhan thought that there could be talks about moving the start of the CFL season up 3 to 4 weeks to give them a longer, basically where you could bet on CFL more before the NFL comes back, which I thought was interesting. I mean, that to me is to start the CFL in May to accommodate more gambling. I think that's fine. But then you're moving the Grey Cup up. You can't move the Grey Cup.
Right.
Except it's December this year. But don't worry. I thought that was, anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Hodge tweeted, should the CFL strive to improve the business model? Of course, the business model needs tweaking, but it's not broken. It never has been. I think when the league loses roughly $10 to $20 million a year on a good year, I would say the business model is broken.
It's broken.
I would say that. We are really getting close to the Edmonton team name. I think it's going to be the Elk. That's what we're hoping. Connor O'Neill, friend of the show. But the president, they thought they were going to announce it when they announced all their losses last week. Chris Presson, the Edmonton president, he goes, the new name is 80 to 85% ready. And the latest possible reveal date will be August 1st. Paul, it's 3 letters, ELK. What is 80%?
They've drawn the E, the L, and the line of the K. The last 15 to 20% are the 2 letters lions coming off the K. That's what it is. Or maybe, they've drawn the whole body of the elk and all you got to do is add the antlers. I don't know what that means.
It just was funny. I mean, they're moving forward. I mean, they got to announce it by potentially August 5th. That's when the season started. I mean, I get you're trying to rebrand the team. You're trying to do all that stuff. But he was talking on the 6:30 Chad in Edmonton about that. I did just think that was odd. Just a quick note, there was a lot of interest from the Mark Woodall Moray Keith group. They wanted to invest in the BC Lions. They are dropping out now due to uncertainty with kind of everything. I would imagine with not only this CFL season, but I would imagine also the CFL as a business model in general.
Yeah. I don't blame them. You don't know if there's going to be a CFL if they don't take the field. I know Jeff believes there still be a CFL if they don't play a game in 2021. I tend to disagree with that, but I mean, we'll see.
Just a couple notes here. Really scary. This Jalen Saunders, Ottawa Redblacks. He was in like this horrendous car accident this week. I saw a post online. He was originally in the XFL with the Roughnecks, but he was placed on injury reserve. So he kind of has some history with the XFL, but he was in just thoughts and prayers and wishes and everything to him. I saw the photos, horrendous, car accident, but he's great. He was on pace. He was playing, for the Argonauts and got hurt. We're going to get rid of this Rough Riders thing. One other note, we'll break here pretty quick. Montreal Alouettes, they're doing a new partnership with ready-to-drink alcoholic beverages, Twisted Tea, and Truly Hard Seltzer.
Congrats.
So is that going to save the CFL?
I'm not going to save the CFL. No.
I thought that was cool. Matt Mangle was excited about that. Friend of the show, Matt Mangle, who's going to be at the Alouettes. One other note, we're following up with Pierre Lestage. We talked about him getting signed by the Seahawks. Pete Carroll, he calls him really excited about this kid. They're getting him as a guard in emergency center. Really excited to potentially have the CFL players coming in and saving the Seahawks. That would be great.
I like that idea. Yeah. Especially since it's the Seahawks. All right.
Let's take a break. We'll blast through, and then we'll be good. Do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be back after this.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Markcast. Some XFL notes.
XFL, who knew? Who knew we go? Jordan Ta'amu, former St. Louis Bellhawks. He was with he just got let go from the he was with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's been with the Lions. He was with the Washington mini rookie camp this weekend, which I thought was great. A lot of people are like, what does that mean? Is Jordan going to be joining Taylor over there? What are they doing? They brought him in. I think like Taylor's still training. They're not going to bring in Fitzpatrick to do all this stuff. I thought this was interesting. This was shared from Scott Anthony, XFL Extra Points on Twitter. But they're talking to Jordan. This is like the post press conference. I'll play just like a minute of this. It's kind of interesting. Them talking to him about his experience.
Can you tell us a little bit about how this opportunity came about and what it meant for you to get it?
Yeah, I was in Nashville training, and then just like a week ago, the Chiefs had to let me go due to numbers, draft picks, free agents. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call from my agent, and then from the people here, the coaches, saying that they want me to come down for the weekend or however long it takes, but they wanted me to come down and work out with them. So I told them, yes, this is another opportunity for me to get better and get my name out there more. So great to be here.
So, and then they asked him about Heineke and stuff too. I just thought that was cool. I mean, he's still bouncing around. You got to feel bad for these guys, trying to get around trying to get around the league. But I mean, I don't think that that's going to lead. Like Ta'amu is not signing with the Washington football team. I mean, he's someone that has an arm that they brought in to do some training. But I did think that was cool. And they talked to them, and he did talk about how Heineke, he really looked up to Heineke, that even though Jordan was the starting quarterback for the Battlehawks, that he really learned from him, and that he's super excited, obviously about all the success that Taylor's having with Washington football.
And I think basically, Heineke is proving that these XFL quarterbacks could possibly have a future in the NFL. Possibly. Just some quick player notes. Former number 1 overall pick in the 2020 XFL draft, Rashard Davis, was cut by the Titans. The Austin Prohl, we followed him for a while. He's a former Seattle Dragons. He was let go by the 49ers, brought back by the Chargers. And then the other thing that was cool was the Seattle Seahawks are signing Houston Roughnecks Walter Palmore. He joined Savion Smith, who was recently waived by the Dallas and signs with the team. So there's 7 XFL guys. But there's 7 now that are on the NFL rosters this year. So that's kind of cool. And then New York, the Jets are signing Dallas Renegades running back Austin Walter, and he was let go from the 49ers, and he is joining Battlehawks Connor Davis on the Jets roster. Also, shout out to Ernesto. His Rattlers won 51-20. Against the Northern Arizona Wranglers.
He was 7 for 7 on extra points. That's incredible. 7 for 7.
I don't anything Northern Arizona. I'm like, Northern Arizona. All right. Coming up after this, I was busy working, so Reid took control of the entire thing. It's all about Reid and Stan Bedwell right after the break.
What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, my man? Sorry for being late.
No worries. I appreciate it. This is exciting. First off, just because obviously who you are and everything. We've been trying to get the Spring League coverage back on. We had Brian Woods on a couple weeks ago. And so you're the first person we've had the opportunity to talk with now, in the bubble, everything playing. So first off, how has everything been going so far?
Good, man. It's a great experience. Definitely unique coming from my end. I seem to be the guy everybody wants to interview. I guess I'm like the token old guy or something. But no, it's been awesome. Just getting to go out and practice and play with these young guys that are extremely talented, and just in awe of the level of coaching and the names here that you see. So it's just to be a part of that is an incredible experience. Something that I never would have expected happening.
Well, and it's something that we've definitely expected, our listeners and fans, for the Spring League, right? Good football, the games have come back. It's been exciting. It's been athletic. What have you seen so far, both interacting with everybody on the sidelines and the games? What have you seen with the level of play so far?
I mean, I think it's good. I think something that kind of surprised me just from, I guess, not knowing too much about the Spring League is all of the transactions that you're seeing, guys being signed, released, and, picked up by other teams, things like that. So it's been pretty interesting to see that professional side of things that, if a guy comes in, he doesn't perform or he gets a bit banged up when you're playing such a short season, you really got to make a lot of moves and make them fast. So, I mean, obviously, seeing the talent of some of the guys here. One thing that's blown me away is a specialist. There's some really good kickers, punters in this league. Those guys are pinning it down on the one. You got the 59-yard field goal from the guy in Houston. Our little guy, Jonathan, almost got the 56-yarder the other night. Thought our running backs, if they could have just ran for one more yard the play before, we probably would have scored. But no, I mean, it's a great level of play. The offensive line plays very good. I think trenches both sides is really good. And, you definitely see a mix of guys that have played at that level and, small school guys that are just trying to get the shot. And then you got, the mix of the guys that were in the camps that, were drafted to the league here. And then you got the guys that are putting forth the money, for that opportunity to play. So it's a really wide range of guys, and I think a wide range of, I guess, goals for people. I think some are happy just getting to play on television. Some are trying to get out of here as soon as possible.
It never ceases to amaze me, you know, the people we meet and interact with. You know, here I am sitting watching the game on Saturday. I got a beer and I hear Kevin and Brock telling this wonderful story about you know, your background, time in Europe, everything else. And I think, what an incredible story and an individual, right? I have to reach out to this, you know, guy to get him on the podcast. And I go, we already follow each other online. This is wonderful, right? And what I love about it is, and I wish Paul could have been here today, my co-host. He had to work. We couldn't get media stuff, you know, figured out. But you exemplify like everything that, you know, our podcast, what we try to do, what our listeners, right? Getting players the opportunities, players that are fighting for the opportunity, right? That maybe, you know, missed their chance or were never given a chance. Someone looked the other way. So, I mean, not that we have to rehash the whole FS1 thing, but could you give us maybe the Cliff Notes elevator pitch of kind of your background and that they talked about on the broadcast?
Yeah, well, one thing I was upset is that, you know, he said I had 343 touchdowns, and
it was low.
I have 438, yeah. So he kind of jipped me of 95. So I was a little bit upset about that. But no, I guess to make it kind of quick, I'm from a town of about 1,000 in Southwest Arkansas, right near the Texas border. And yeah, growing up, baseball was my sport. That was probably, and I had, even in high school, I had Division I offers for baseball. And I mean, we were small wing T team, you know, played a lot, but was never a starter. I don't think I started a game after 7th grade in football, but again, football is something I did for fun. Baseball is what I was doing, you know, all summers, and that was my focus. And yeah, so, you know, got through that, never had any remote thought process of one day I want to try to play, you know, college football or anything like that. That was just something that I kind of did on the side. I was enamored by I guess the X's and O's aspect of it, the mental aspect, and always it was a plan that, well, I'm going to go play Major League Baseball and then I'm going to coach in the NFL after. You know, that's what, you know, 9-year-old Stan would have told you. So yeah, decided to go to a Division II close to home to play baseball. That was a really successful program. And was there for a year. I tore my rotator cuff and then transferred to a junior college, played baseball there for 2 years in Northern Arkansas. And, you know, after having all of these Division I offers out of high school, and then after 2 years of JUCO, not having any Division I offers, you know, D2 small schools, I was just like, well, maybe it's time to try to focus on football, because that's, if you know, if I can't make it out of here, I'm not going to make it much farther than this. I like to think I'm a pretty realistic guy about, you know, opportunities and my chances on things. So I thought, okay, well, it'd be good if I could be a part of a football team in college to see what that's like. And it would be really good if I could find a way to get on the field. And so, you know, I'd read this article about this team in North Dakota that got beat 105-0 by a pretty bad team. And I just thought, like, well, you know, I should be able to play there.
Yeah.
So, you know, put together, scrounge up what I could from highlights and, you know, sent it out. I had a few NAI offers and things like that, but that was always like the interesting thing to me, because the head coach there, Jim Dotson, had told me, like, yeah, you come here. He's like, you'll be my guy. And I mean, they had about 30 guys on the team, and, you know, a lot of guys going both ways, and went there, and we were running the veer, and I'm not a very fast guy. And so, you know, one of those linebackers caught me, and my first game, I popped my AC joint, and I was just like, man, I came all the way up here to North Dakota, living in a town of, you know, under 1,000 at a Bible college, and I'm not very religious. I'm like, this is going to be a long fall. And so I just pleaded with the coaches. I'm like, you know, I played defense a lot in high school. Let's see what I can do there. And, you know, they moved me. They let me play safety. And then midway through that second game, I ended up starting at safety the next week. And we were that hurt for numbers, I guess. But midway through, we had a receiver go down, and I knew the offense because I played, you know, quarterback. So I jumped in there and had a few catches. And the rest of the year, I started both ways. I have to be the most unathletic two-way starter in the history of college football. And yeah, did that. And our head coach there had spent a little time in Europe doing clinics. And one night he brought up football in Europe. And I thought, okay, I'd like to do that. So found a website, europlayers.com, put all my stuff in there, and had a chance from Switzerland take a chance on me, or a team from Switzerland took a chance on me. And from there it was, not a very good year. Second year in Finland, I did pretty good. And third year I started running the air raid. When I started doing that, it was just, it took off. It went from 150 yards passing in a game being like, wow, I threw for triple digits to, I think the first air raid game I threw for 469 and 7 touchdowns. And I was like, oh, this is pretty easy. So, yeah. So from there, it's just been all, throughout Europe every year, coming back, coaching college football. I've been an offensive coordinator at junior colleges for 5 years. I coached Coach Mummy at Belhaven University in Mississippi in 2015. I was just recently I just left actually to come here. I was offensive coordinator at Manchester University, which is just 2 hours up the road here in Indiana. And so it's been a lot of college ball, small college football, globetrotting all over, playing and kind of being the Jackie Moon of European football. I think 9 years I've been head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback at the same time. And in 2016, I was the head coach of a team in Rome and the head coach, quarterback, OC of a team in Finland, whose seasons actually interlapped by a month. So I was literally, if we had a bye week in Italy, I would fly to Finland and do a training camp for that week. And then I'd fly back to Italy. And, I'm probably the only person that's ever been the head coach of 2 teams at the same time that were playing at the same time in 2 different countries. So
how did it come to the Spring League now? Is it with because of Coach Mummy, or did they reach out? How did that go to get you here now?
They needed a mascot, so they thought I'd look good on TV.
Yeah, right.
Now, Coach Mummy, we've been, since he saw me speak at the AFCA convention in 2015, and since then we've had a good relationship. We hung out that night, and he offered me a job that night at Belhaven, and since then we've always been in touch. And he brought me to Dallas to work the training camp with the Renegades last year. I was back home in the South for Christmas, so I went there for one of the weeks I was home. And we had actually been talking about going to Europe together. And that was that's something we were working on in the spring, was trying to find somewhere that we could go. The hippie head coach, I played quarterback. We thought, how cool would it be, for me to look over on the sideline and see you calling mesh, which we know you're going to call every play anyway.
Yeah.
And, so we had talked about that. We talked to some teams in Europe, and that never really worked out. And it was the Sunday, so a week before everyone was reporting on that Sunday. I think it was the night after, or the afternoon after he was announced as the head coach for the linemen. He just sent me a simple lowercase text out of the blue. Haven't talked to him in 2 months. It just said, "Come be backup QB and QB coach." And I responded, I was like, "I'd happily come be your QB coach, but I don't know if I'm in shape to play quarterback at that level now." I kind of thought I was done. And then his response was, "I'm going to call you." And then he basically called me and told me, "How much shape do you need to be in to catch and throw a football?" And he's like, "Plus, Ryan's going to play every snap anyway, unless he gets hurt or something." So, I thought about it. I was like, well, this is a good opportunity. And, while all the players are, trying to impress someone and maybe get, signed to an NFL roster, for me, it's like, I'm not going to be a 5'9", 5'10", 36-year-old rookie quarterback. It's just not going to happen in the NFL. But there's plenty of probably 5'10", 36-year-old coaches in the NFL. So I was like, well, maybe I get there and I make, good connections and get a chance to do that. So even though I never played, pro Major League Baseball, maybe I can do the second part and coach in the NFL.
And what has been the reaction? I mean, obviously having someone with such a wealth of knowledge on the field, playing everywhere, now coming in and being able to help these players, be alongside Coach Mumme. I mean, what has that been like in the reaction from your teammates?
I think at first it was, well, I remember the first practice that we had, we went to do, we were doing an inside run, and, receiver DBs were doing one-on-ones. So Ryan was over there throwing the one-on-ones, and I went to handle the inside run. And, we were trying to get a certain look in the run game. So, I'm there dressed up as quarterback, and, I got the shoulder pads helmet on, and I'm like telling these linebackers, hey, you move this way, you do this, you do this. And, our defensive line coach, Chuck Bullough, was like, said those guys were like, who the hell is this old bald guy telling us what to do? And, they're like, no, he's a coach too. So, I think it was a bit strange at first of, who am I, what I'm doing. When I was walking through the halls here, it was never a what team are you playing for? It's like, who do you coach? And things like that. But, as this went along and, we practiced, now it's just, it's really a unique thing because, I game plan with Coach Mumme. I call plays with Coach Mumme, go out with the coaches to dinner. I'll go, hang out with the players. And so it's kind of a unique situation where I'm seen as a player and as a coach from like all ends. And I mean, it works really well. I think it's all the other players call me coach and sir, which I don't know if I'd prefer that or not, but it works. And I mean, ultimately, what I've told these guys is I know I'm not going to go to the next level from here. This will be the pinnacle of my career from a playing standpoint, but I'm going to do everything that I can to help you guys reach your goals. And I think that, when people know that you don't have that, your motives are strictly to help them reach their goals, then guys are going to, take to you a lot better. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I want to make sure I get this in before we get cut off. We cover a lot of these alt leagues, right? We've covered fan control football, spring league. And the reason why we do it is for the players, right? To give them the platform, to get the name out. If we can cover these leagues, talk about the importance of having something like the spring league as a place for players, to come. Like I said before, if they've missed their chance or it didn't work out timing wise, to have something like this where they can play on national television, obviously, under the expertise of people like you, Coach Mumme, all the other, Jerry Glanville. I mean, all the other, tremendous amount. When they announced the coaches, we're like, this is crazy, the amount of talent they're bringing in. So how important is it to have a league and a place like this for players like you and others?
I mean, I think it's incredible. It's, you got guys that there's so many guys that are just that maybe were in an NFL camp a year ago that are sitting at home now. Or, take Ryan Willis, our young quarterback. He's been at Exos out in Arizona, throwing to NFL receivers all the time. And he's just out there working out every day, waiting for an opportunity, waiting for a call. And I mean, I doubt there's just a lot of, honestly, NFL scouts that are coming and watching a guy just stand around and throw to receivers. So, I mean, for a chance, for guys to have that platform to go out and play at a high level on games that are on, television, where it's easy to see, I think it's incredible. There's the NBA has something similar. Baseball has however many levels of minor league baseball. For football, it's not, you could say, okay, well, indoor baller, but there's nobody that's really scouting hard indoor football to see who's going to translate to the 11-man game. So, I mean, leagues like this it's essential. And just from the amount of guys already that, since we've started the season in these 2 weeks, I think there's probably been about 5 or 6 guys that have, that have signed contracts. Just saw another quarterback in the South. It was yesterday or today, got picked up. And those guys that probably wouldn't have got picked up had they not been here. And that's whether they played on the field or not. The fact that they're here, and when you got 4 or 5 NFL coaches on your staff, that carries some weight. And when they, you know, if a Terry Shea says, hey, this guy can play quarterback in the NFL, he can probably play quarterback in the NFL. I mean, it's great. I can't say anything bad about it.
As someone that has had to go through so much, you know, self-perseverance, you know, fighting against the odds, making your own way, what would be your advice for other players, ones that you are playing alongside now, you know, people that are watching this, as someone that's really, you know, to self-motivate and go through all that and really find your way?
I'd say to focus on where you are right now. I think that there's always so much push of, well, if I do well here, then maybe, you know, if I'm in college, if I do well here, then the scouts will see me and I'll play. But you know, the thought process is where I'm going instead of where I'm at now. And, you know, I mean, I've never thought from a standpoint of, you know, from best seasons I've had in Europe, I've never thought like, okay, I might get that call and get that workout with the Jets or whoever. You know, there's never been that thought process. And being that realistic that, you know, there's not going to be people looking to sign me now. It's been a thing where I can focus on doing exactly what I need to do to execute and to help my team and, you know, to work on my craft. And, you know, I think if you're talented enough and you're working hard and you're focusing on every rep in practice and getting better and doing that rep the best that you possibly can, and you're putting in the time, the film work, and in the gym and doing everything else that you need to do, it's natural. It's going to take care of itself. And I think instead of just, you know, focus on where I can go, it's just being the best you that you can be wherever you're at right now.
That's great. You've been so gracious with your time. I don't want to hold up today. I know we got, media availability and everything, but I really appreciate, you know, making the time. We love to get players like you and others that are in these leagues, you know, on the show, talking about things, talking about the importance of it, because it's one thing for Paul and I to spout about it. And it's another thing to hear, you know, the real life people that are doing everything and coming on and speaking the, you know, how they feel about it. So I want to thank you so much. We'll have to get you on another time when we're not in all this league stuff, because I feel like your story we could fill a podcast just with your life story about everything that you've seen and done and all the accomplishments that you have.
Yeah, I think more so than hearing my story would just be hearing stories in general.
I like that.
I think that's something worth doing sometime.
Well, we'll schedule it. We'll get you through. We'll get the alignment, the championship, and then we'll get you on as one of the winning coaches, and we'll do this again. So thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Welcome back. Great interview. Great stuff.
Stan, and I get it, right? I mean, I've been talking with the Spring League guys. I get what they are, you know, really trying to do, and people want to say, and they don't pay and all that stuff. You know, if you look at Stan and the tremendous success he had, but the time and the journey he took to have to go to Europe and play in all these teams versus, hey, come to a ball. I mean, not that it's this, you know, but getting these opportunities, right? Like Stan traveled the world to get opportunities, which is incredible. But like having places where players, you know, that aren't like that crazy league that went bankrupt and the coaches got in the fight like a month ago. I can't remember the name of that one, but like the NGL or whatever. Like the fact that you can go, you know, there's places like the Hub Camp and there's places like Spring League where the players can get that tape, I think is really invaluable.
Very cool. Update on last week's rating on FS1. It was not under 20K. It was actually 95K.
We record on Thursdays and post on Fridays. So when an article comes out Friday afternoon, it's not going to be on the podcast. The reason was the demos were so bad they were so terrible in the demo, they didn't rank, but they actually had more viewers, you know, outside of that, whatever that added to that 95,000. Mike said that it was 95,000, 51,000 for the second game, then 114,000. That's actually a nice number. That game was on, was it Saturday night? Not on like the main. Yeah, it was on like FS2 or whatever. So that was good. Anyway, I got asked a lot to make a correction about that. They got 95,000. Which is good.
Eric Dungy left the TSL last week. He signed with the Bengals. Congrats.
congrats. I guess with Joe Burrow, right? I mean, Burrow's back. I don't know who the other Bengals like backup quarterback is.
I don't think it matters right now. Hopefully Joe Burrow's 100%. They say he is, so we're hoping for the best for him.
The other thing, Denver Broncos, we talked about this last week. Brandon Marshall was going to go to the TSL. That was a big story about that. And he ended up going to the hub camp instead and did not go to the spring league. So I think maybe he was trying to play one side against the other and was like, hey, I'm going to go. But it seemed like he was a big name that was going to go, and they were excited about that. Another signing, the Vikings signed Evan. I cannot pronounce his last name.
The K is silent.
Zizarexi.
Shazarski.
There you go. Yeah, that's good. That's good. He's been in the spring league before. He got signed for the Vikings. I like to keep track of. Matthew Sexton got signed by the Steelers. All that stuff. This is also exciting. Alphas QB JT Barrett. He is going to attend the Dallas Cowboys minicamp. So he played last year. I think he played for the Alphas last year in November. He was great. So I was very excited to watch JT Barrett play. I mean, he'd be behind Dak Prescott, right? Most highest paid man.
They paid him. They paid him. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
But hey, I mean, good for him. Just a couple notes. The Saturday games, slow start. These games, slow start. The players are getting the chemistry. But Kevin Anderson came out and really kind of was not good. I was tweeting or messaging with Brian Scott, and I said, man, I really wish you were back out here playing right now. But Brandon Silvers came in for the second half. Anderson hadn't done anything the first half. They were like 30 yards of offense. Silvers came in he came in for, I think there was 4 plays down. He had a touchdown. I go, where was this man? So Brandon Silver's mom, Georgette, who follows me on Twitter, goes, well, he was there the whole time. The Dragons didn't have an offensive coordinator for the XFL. I go, okay.
A little bit of violence. I love it.
Brandon Silvers also then immediately threw an interception and had a big sack. So it was sack. So it was a mixed message, but it was like really cool to see Brandon Silvers like the gunslinger. Like that was the prince that was promised when they signed Brandon. And then we went to DC and it didn't work out. But I was like, this is what we've wanted is Brandon Silvers. So I don't know what they're going to do this week with the Conquerors, but it was really, really exciting. One other note, we're going to get out of here because Kevin Anderson's big, like he's a quarterback's coach. Like he does his own training. So like the announcers talk all the time. Oh, look at Anderson. Like he's really talking to his team. And it's like, okay, guys, we're going to do like, cause they're all mic'd, like, hey guys, we're going to do it. And Brandon Silver's like, he's like, go on 7, sit. And like, what? Like they're very different. They're like, Brandon Silvers is like, no BS. Like I'm coming out and throwing the rock, but I thought that was good.
Very cool. There was a rain delay though. I saw that.
Yeah, that was crazy on Monday. Huge rain delay. I still have yet to watch the Jousters play live on anywhere in the world because they were going to play Monday night. They played Tuesday. I had an event. But yeah, it was good. The other quick note is the Spring League on this Saturday. They posted 448,000 viewers for the Alphas win over the Conquerors. It was up 18% versus last week's rating of 380,000. And I tweeted, I thought that ratings always went down the second week. That's what everyone says. They're like, well, whatever they get, like XFL or, ratings are always going to go down. Well, it went up 18%.
It means there's an appetite for football, Arash.
Well, that also means that when people know that your season is happening, that they will watch it. So thank you, Brian Woods and Sammy and Mark for getting Stan on the podcast. And we're going to hopefully keep doing some spring coverage next week because I do think that goes hand in hand, getting your name out there.
Yeah. So, what an idea. Get your name out there, get some publicity, let people know about your product, and there you go. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for listening. Sorry we kind of blazed through everything. I got a lot of stuff on the plate today. I apologize for that. Hopefully next week, I'm pretty sure next week's going to be a lot calmer in terms of like doing things. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Of course, subscribe.
Yeah,
please.
No, we went through about 12 pages of Google Docs there in about 53 minutes. So that's your news blitz. But that was 4 hours of my life putting that together. Thank you guys all so much. Please like and subscribe. We have 200 more people. Jousters giveaway. Leave us a review. The Markcast.com/review.
There you go. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.